Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this 9-game Fanduel and Draftkings slate today. If you played last night, it was a real weird slate. Not a lot happening. Hopefully you got some Anthony Rendon in your lineups as he hit his first home run with the Angels. Other than that, a lot of really weird stuff happening. So we're just going to let that one go and get into this one. I'm real excited for this slate today. For the first time, we actually have pitching in each tier. We're going to have elite guys up top that we can play, and then we're going to have some cheaper guys, and we have some great spots with the bats as well. So with that being said, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm over there at KJK_DFS. You can also get some of my exclusive content on Patreon, where I'll include things like spreadsheets, power rankings, my top plays of the day, and then my cheat sheet, which I'll break down the top plays in each tier on the slate on both Fanduel and Draftkings. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check the link in the description. If not, that's fine. And we're going to go ahead and break down this slate. So starting out with pitching, we have some really high-tier elite K guys today. Most notable is Ger Cole. So Ger Cole is a guy that if you're playing fantasy baseball, I'm sure you're aware of. Absolutely dominant pitcher. Been on the Astros for a while and came over to the Yankees this year. You'll see his K percentage at 37 is just absolutely elite. And he gets a matchup with the Baltimore Orioles, who strike out a ton. The only question you have is his price. Looking at that on Fanduel, his price has gotten all the way up to 10.7. So I believe it's 10.7, 11.7 actually. So that's going to be a factor as far as fitting in your bats and that kind of thing. But taking on the Baltimore Orioles and displaying a 37% strikeout rate is something you're going to have a lot of interest in. It's just a matter of finding the salary to make it work. Secondly, we have Jacob deGrom. He's taking on the Red Sox, not quite as good of a matchup, but his price is a little bit more affordable at 11.2. Not a huge difference, but if you want to fit in that extra bat or something, deGrom's obviously an elite pitcher as well, displaying a 32% strikeout rate and even less walks than Ger Cole. So definitely another strong option. And then a guy that's a young phenom for the Padres, Chris Paddack, is taking on the Giants. You're going to notice a trend in a lot of my videos as far as these lineups we're targeting. We got the Giants, Seattle, and then you got Detroit down here. We'll get into them later. But there's a lot of, in particular, lineups in the MLB right now that are just displaying huge strikeout numbers. Even good lineups. You talk about the Yankees specifically, the Bronx Bombers, they strike out a ton. And oftentimes you'll find people not wanting to play guys against them, but you can find some strikeouts. With that being said, I'm actually going to transition over to some guys we're going to want to target today. And the first is that of Asher Wajanowski taking on the New York Yankees. If you go ahead and sort my sheet by Sierra, you'll see he's dead last. And his numbers are less than impressive, borderline terrible. He's got a 4.92 ERA, a 22% K rate there, and then his ground ball and fly ball rates are the ones that really stand out. He's got a 51% fly ball rate, and taking on a Yankees lineup that displays a ton of power, that's going to be a guy we really want to target. So looking at their lineup today, really, I would target 1 through 9. It's not something I'm going to say often Usually there's one or two guys you can leave off that list. But taking on Wajanowski here, and then the Baltimore bullpen behind him, and not to mention in Baltimore, which something people don't think about when they're making Fanduel lineups and Draftkings lineups, is when you play teams on the road, they're guaranteed that ninth inning to hit. So the Yankees could have 20 runs on the board and they're still going to hit in the ninth inning. Of course, if that happens, you're talking some pinch hit risk there. But being that they have 20 runs on the board, I'm guessing you're going to be pretty happy with your scores. I'm guessing you're going to have a few guys that have already hit some bombs or some doubles and got some RBIs in your stacks. So, Gleyber Torres, a guy that really stands out at his price tag on FanDuel. He's only 3.2K, and his history in Baltimore is tremendous. He seems to go into Baltimore and just hit home runs, hit 2 home runs, hit 3 home runs every single game. And then you got the power bats in Stanton, Judge, LeMahieu at the top of the order. You can put him in stacks. He's got a little bit of pop still, and he's going to be part of this order. You're going to get credit for hit when he gets on base. He gets hit in. If he hits 3 doubles, and then he gets credit for every time he scores and the RBIs he hits on top of it, you're going to be happy having him in your stacks. So not to ramble there, but a spot you're going to want to have interest in, 1 through 9, obvious spot on the board. And then for moving further on guys we're going to want to target, you'll see second on the list is Danny Duffy. So taking on a Detroit team that's not very good, but they have some guys that do crush lefties, and Danny Duffy really struggles against right-handed hitters. 436 slugging, not a good hard hit rate either. And then you see the fly ball rates up there as well. So guys we're going to want to target from the Detroit lineup. Really, the top of the order, middle of the order, most notably Jonathan Schoop is the guy that crushes lefties in the second base spot, and he's 2.5 on FanDuel. That's very affordable, and he's in a great spot. And then CJ Krom is a guy that Kron or Krom, people pronounce it differently. He's a guy that you're gonna want to play here big time. His splits against lefties are ridiculous, and taking on Danny Duffy, he's the guy who gives up a ton of hard contact to right-handed hitters. Krom's jumping off my list today. You got to get him in your lineups. More guys to target as we move further along the list. You'll see Johnny Cueto is the third guy. His ground ball and fly ball rates actually aren't terrible. It's more about his swing strike rate and K percentage. He's just a guy that his delivery can be deceptive. He changes it up a lot, and that's how he tries to get hitters out. But he's given up a ton of contact, so anyone with power is going to have the opportunity to put the ball in play and get it lifted and get you some of those fantasy points for those home runs. So when looking at the lineup he's taking on, guys with some power, you got Tatis at the top of the lineup. And then Manny Machado is a guy that he's an elite name. I preferably like to target him against left-handed pitchers, but being that Cueto's strikeout rate's so low, you could definitely have interest in him. He's still got that power, and you don't have to worry about the strikeouts as much. And then moving further along, you got Tommy Pham in the middle of the order. Definitely got to have interest in him. Jurickson Profar is another second baseman you can have interest in. The second base position is always really, really thin on FanDuel. So when you're trying to build those lineups, definitely going to want to have interest in him. And then this is where the slate gets interesting, because we've talked about these cheaper bats, and you have Ger Cole and Jacob deGrom up top. But you also have this Minnesota squad who's absolutely loaded with bats, and they're taking on Daniel Ponce de Leon, who's a young kid. When looking at his splits against right-handed hitters, he hasn't been too terrible, but then lefties, his ground ball and fly ball rates are really, really bad. He's constantly giving up fly balls. The hard hit rate and the slugging isn't really high, but when you're allowing all those fly balls to a lineup like the Minnesota Twins, you gotta have a lot of interest there. And looking at guys we can play from their team, it's pretty much 1 through 9. Actually, there are some guys I would leave off the list here, unlike the Yankees stack. But Kepler, Donaldson, Polanco, Cruz, Rosario, Garver, all absolutely great plays. Arias is a guy, I mentioned him in the last video as well, actually. He doesn't strike out. He's constantly putting the ball in play, and he's got a little bit of speed, but he really lacks in the power category. So if you're playing him, you're probably using him as a salary relief guy, and you're just banking on the Twins scoring a ton of runs and him coming through with some clutch base hits that are going to allow him to get on base and score runs and get those RBIs, etc. And then Miguel Sano, another guy with a ton of power. And then you got Byron Buxton, who is probably the second guy I would leave off the list. However, he does have a lot of speed. So if you find yourself wanting to get in maybe an expensive bat in Nelson Cruz, and then you want to finish out your Minnesota stack by getting some exposure to the bottom of the lineup so that when he's on base, these guys at the top come up type of deal, you could do that. That's actually a strategy called a wraparound stack in DFS that you can employ at times. So yeah, Twins team you're going to want to have interest in. And then another guy you could target here is Joe Musgrove. But Musgrove's kind of hit or miss. He's a guy that can go out there and dominate, or he's a guy that can go out there and get blown up. So, I mean, he's not really a guy that I'm just going to fully endorse targeting like I have some of these guys already. But you can. And the guys you would want to target are, let's scroll over to the Milwaukee lineup. Guys you would want to target are the guys with the power. So, Christian Yelich, he's really been struggling out of the gate to start the season. I don't see that keeping up. He's too good of a hitter. It really doesn't make sense. Last night's slate, I can't get over how these elite hitters looked. I mean, you had guys Mike Trout, Christian Yelich all striking out against really poor pitchers, and I just don't see that continuing. I mean, the late start to the season, I think these guys are a little rusty, but they're gonna get it back. And a guy like Christian Yelich, who's really been struggling, you might see some lower ownership on him. People like to log into Fanduel, look at the box scores from the previous games, and if the guy's been struggling, they just say, "Oh, he's been struggling. I don't want to play him," and that's not smart in my opinion. And actually, when that does happen, I love to play those guys. Yelich is a guy that's been struggling, but he's an elite hitter. He has a long track record of being an elite hitter. It's not something, he's not a rookie that had an explosion year. He's done it year in and year out. And I really love the spot for him tonight as far as ownership's concerned. So, yeah, that's my rant on Yelich. Get him in your lineups. And then Keston Hiura, a guy with a lot of power against right-handed pitching, a guy you're going to want to have interest in. Justin Smoke, a lot of power against righties. Even Omar Narvaez, he's a catcher. So you're soaking up that catcher first base position on FanDuel. But if you're trying to get an elite pitcher such as Ger Cole or Jacob deGrom, then he's a great option. So once again, some bats that have interest in here on Milwaukee. And then the Dodgers are a team you're going to have to mention every day. We don't really have much info on this Christian Javier kid. If you go ahead and look him up on Fangraphs, you'll see that He's a 23-year-old kid, and he's making his start against the Dodgers. But we really don't have much data on him. He's come into one inning and pitched an inning, or one inning pitched. So that's the only data we have on him. Scrolling down to his minor league numbers, you'll see in AAA last year, he only pitched 11 innings, so not much to work off there. But in his AA days, he had a 13.86 K per nine. Ground ball rate is not the most impressive at 28. And then his advanced stats is what we're really going to want to be interested in because we're playing fantasy sports. And when digging into those, you'll see the AA sample size that we had the most on. He had a 39% K rate. So he's a guy that'll strike a lot of people out, it seems. But then again, he is getting his first taste of the majors, and he's taking on a Dodgers lineup that is absolutely stacked. So being that it's his first game in the majors and being that he's taking on the Dodgers, that immediately gives me interest in the Dodgers. Your classic guys, Muncy, Betts, Bellinger, Turner. I mean, this is a lineup that you can target 1 through 9 every day. It's ridiculous the guys they have that they can just throw in there. And you really gonna want to target pretty much who you can fit in salary base. So if you're going with a higher priced guy in Ger Cole, I can see how you might want to stack the bottom of this lineup with these cheaper guys to get exposure to the Dodgers lineup, and you get power in Jock Peterson, Enrique Hernandez, Austin Barnes, Corey Seager, and that's a great way to get some guys in an elite lineup with an elite pitcher because their prices are lower. And a guy that you can consider on the lower end of pitching, actually, that I missed earlier, because we're going to want to get some more expensive bats in, is that of Andrew Heaney. Andrew Heaney comes in with a price tag today on Fanduel that I believe is too low. It's 7-1, and he's taking on Seattle. Just target Seattle. I've been playing pitchers against Seattle all year long. I'll continue to do so. It's been very successful for me. They're a lineup that strikes out a ton, so you want to play guys with even decent strikeout rates will suffice. So, I mean, you go over to Heaney. He's got a 25% K rate. He does give up some hard contact against the Mariners. I'm not concerned about that. It's really just a matter of missing those bats. And against righties specifically, he's got a 25, and then lefties, it kicks up to a 27 over here. So, I mean, his numbers against lefties are obviously preferred. The ground ball rate's low, the fly ball rate's low, the K percentage rises. So, looking at this Seattle lineup, there are only 3 lefties. That's the downside to playing him. But I don't care, to be honest. Completely blunt, I don't care at all. It's a Seattle lineup that's terrible. They strike out, and dropping down to that 7-1 price tag versus guys that we discussed earlier, such as a Ger Cole or a Jacob deGrom, is going to open up room for bats, and you're going to be able to get in some elite lineups. So there are some good options on the cheap end, and there are some good options on the high end, and I think that's what makes this slate really interesting, and I'm excited for it. So, quick little brief overview of what I had gone over. As far as teams that have interest in, Milwaukee, specifically Christian Yelich, if you can fit his bat in, he's been really struggling, and I think that we could see an ownership plummet on him tonight in this slate, and if that's the case, and you can get Christian Yelich at 5% in a tournament and he hits 2 home runs, you're going to be really happy with your winnings. Detroit against Danny Duffy, a guy that really struggles against right-handed hitters. CJ Cron is a guy you are going to want to play. Great spot. And then Jonathan Scope as well really sticks out to me. Cameron Maybin on the cheaper side I would like. And then you've got guys down low. And Jacoby Jones actually as well. Definitely an option. Even though he's in the 9 spot, he's cheap and he's taken on the lefty, which he excels in. I'd mentioned the Dodgers taking on a young kid that really hasn't made many appearances in the majors yet. Not a lot of data to go off. He did have a high strikeout rate in AA, but taking on the Dodgers in his first major league appearance, I tend to think they could capitalize on that. Moving further along, not really many spots I'm interested in there. The Yankees against Wajanowski, absolute crush spot. They're going to kill this kid, I think, and it's 1 through 9. So be flexible on your salary, and get some Yankee bats in there. You can go on the cheap side, down in the lower part of the order. You can go on the high side, up top with the guys with the elite power like Judge and Stanton. It's really a matter of who you're pitching. So keep in mind some of the options I had mentioned earlier as far as each pricing tier for pitching. And then the Twins against Ponce de Leon. You got to like them here. Once again, a stacked lineup up and down. I have interest in 1 through 6 here. And then you can use Arias as a salary relief guy if you need it. Sano, I have a ton of interest in for the power. And then Byron Buxton's got the speed. And if he's getting on base, he's going to get some stolen bases for you as well as fit into your lineups well for salary. And then he's just part of a stack to go along and get those runs, RBIs, etc. And then we had mentioned Tatis and Machado and even a Profar down lower in the order for the Padres against Cueto, a guy that doesn't really strike anyone out. He just uses deception, but for fantasy purposes, we'll take that all day. It's going to give us opportunities to have the ball put in play. And finally, to wrap up the slate breakdown, a team I haven't broken down is the Los Angeles Angels. And they're taking on the Seattle Mariners and Justin Dunn, once again, a kid that really hasn't shown us much in the majors. We'll go ahead and look him up on Fangraphs real quick for you guys. And looking at Dunn's stats, we don't really have a lot to work with in the major leagues. I mean, a guy that's pitched a total of 6 innings, but his AA numbers, you can see he's got a 10.8 K per 9, 37% ground ball rate. It's pretty decent. And then scrolling down to his advanced stats, 28% K rate and giving up a 234 average. So that's pretty solid, except we're actually looking at AA there. So, I mean, taking on his first major league club and having to face off against hitters like Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Anthony Rendon, Justin Upton, and a 5.77 run implied total is kind of telling the story there for you. I mean, a team that's expected to put some runs on the board and a team you're definitely going to want to have a lot of interest in. So with that being said, I think that'll just about wrap up the breakdown of today's slate. You can go ahead and follow me over on Twitter at KJK_DFS, where I'll be tweeting out updates throughout the day as far as videos and things are concerned. And then if you're interested in some of my exclusive content, which will include spreadsheets, stat breakdowns, and then some of my exclusive picks, where that'll include my power rankings, my top 3 plays of the day, my cheat sheet, which I break down my top plays by price range, and then my exclusive Discord chat, which is the only thing I can offer right now as far as helping people right before a lock. So any questions you have leading up, if there's changes in the lineup or if someone's in a different lineup spot, etc., you can hop on there and ask me those questions. So those will be linked in the description. I appreciate you tuning in today, and I wish you all the best of luck tonight.